Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. It's just time for another What's Been Spinning video. This is where I just kind of go through and share all the albums that I've actually listened to from front to back. Excuse me, from the very first track to the very last track. Kind of taking in the entire album as the artist intended, kind of thing. And these are the ones that I've kind of done since the last What's Been Spinning video. So let's just kind of dive into What's Been Spinning. We'll start off here with Graveyard. This is their album Lights Out. There's quite a few here too, so maybe I won't spend as much time on all of them, but just kind of a fantastic kind of sludgy, well, it depends on which album you're talking about, but just kind of a good old school 70s kind of thicker rock kind of band. And some stuff can be more bluesy, which is a little bit slower and leans towards that on this album, but definitely check them out if you're not familiar with them because they're just an awesome band. One of my favorite Scorpions albums, had to go back and revisit that, which is Savage Amusement. This is their release from 1988. And of course, you have awesome stuff on here like Rhythm of Love and Passion Rules the Game. And, just again, that great 80s Scorpion stuff. So fantastic one there. Soundtrack that I listen to all the time, and I think I've shown this in a few What's Been Spinnings, but Streets of Fire. Never get tired of listening to this one here. Love the movie, love the album. And of course, my favorite track off of here is Nowhere Fast by Fire Inc. Love that freaking song. Gets me so freaking fired up every time I listen to it. Just an awesome upbeat song. Foreigner, you have Inside Information. This is their release from 1987. And I think on this, you had stuff like Say You Will, awesome big kind of 80s anthem kind of rock. And, I Don't Want to Live Without You, that classic Foreigner, ballad stuff. And just another one of their fantastic albums that came out in the 80s. Awesome legendary group. And this was a great revisit. Alice in Chains Unplugged. This is the music on vinyl pressing from 2010. Excuse me. Of course, you guys kind of know the performance and all of that. I mean, just Alice in Chains, and it was freaking amazing. Lane was just awesome. But I think one of the other things too that I kind of get reminded of, like when I threw this on the other day, was just like how well this was recorded. Because like with the, just even hearing the detail of like hearing their hands slide up and down the guitars. It's just such a great performance and such a fantastic recording. It's almost the kind of album that you may throw on your system to maybe kind of show someone, let me show you how good my system can sound or how cool this setup is kind of thing. Like this is one of the albums that you may use for something like that because it's really just a great recording and of course, legendary, amazing performance. Little Joy Division from 1979. Don't have to say much about this. You guys know what a classic, legendary album this is. And went with little Daryl Hall and John Oates, little Private Eyes. Pulled this one because, actually, I was getting ready to play some Hall and Oates, and I think what maybe a lot of us do, going to a greatest hits, I think is very common for Hall and Oates. And I almost did that, and I thought, let me go actually pull out one of their studio albums that I haven't listened to, to get into some of those B-sides and stuff like that. And this was a great listen. It was kind of nice to go back and revisit this all over again. So fantastic, classic Hall & Oates there. Little Lenny Williams, for those maybe that are familiar with him, Sparkle of Love. Pretty cool R&B album here. Of course, it has the song on here, 'Cause I Love You, which is my favorite song by him. Sometimes this album can get a little whiny. Seems like he's crying to his woman like throughout the entire freaking album. But it's kind of what Lenny did. And this is just a classic album from '78. So that's always a good revisit. Took me a long time to find that album in great condition. And it's only like your typical $7-8 album or whatever. We just could never stumble across it. Next year you have Gary Moore, and this is Corridors of Power. I think Gary is kind of well known for his blues and like his amazing guitar playing. This is one of his more just straight up rock albums, which is just freaking fantastic as he was a genius at that as well. Especially the song Cold Hearted, which is probably my favorite song by him, period, off of this. Really fantastic album. So if you're not familiar with Gary for some reason or that album, Cold Hearted is the track to go check out. Boy Meets Girls. This is Real Life, or Boy Meets Girl, and this is their album Real Life. Definitely one of my 80s guilty pleasures. For this from 1988. The song Waiting for a Star to Fall is just one that I've always loved, to the point where like one of my embarrassing stories with that is, back in the late 80s, we didn't have cell phones and all of that. You had the one big house phone that everyone used, and you couldn't text each other, blah blah blah. So the biggest feature that you oftentimes had was putting somebody on hold, like switching over to the other line. And so I'm talking to this girl one night, and somebody else calls her, and she switches over, and I'm sitting there waiting, and the song Waiting for a Star to Fall comes on. And of course, I'm loving this freaking thing, so I just started like blasting it out to the top of my lungs, and didn't hear that she clicked back over. And she sat there for like maybe 45 seconds, maybe a minute, and just listened to me just blast through the song. So it was kind of embarrassing, but I think it also put me in kind of a good light with her, so I'll take it. But absolutely love it. And so I think that's really kind of the biggest hit that they had. They had one or two other albums. I'm not sure if any hits really came off of that, but it was also interesting because they did a lot of writing for other artists that had very big hits. And I think like maybe one of the biggest would be I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston. I believe they wrote that. And it's almost like so clear when you see the other things that they wrote that other people made famous. It's kind of like you can totally hear that it's all the same stuff that's on that album right there. But anyway, moving right along. I don't make this too long. Thunderclap Newman, Hollywood Dream. This is his release from 1973. Favorite song off of this is Something in the Air. Just, again, if you're not familiar with this album, definitely check that out. I'm sure most of you have heard that song in some element before. And this was a really great listen. This was like night before last. Joy Division to New Order. And this is total from Joy Division to New Order, the best of. It's just kind of some of the greatest stuff from Joy Division and New Order, two of the most legendary bands. And everything on here from stuff like Ceremony, Blue Monday, Bizarre Love Triangle, probably my favorite song by them, True Faith, Regret, and so many other fantastic things. Just a really awesome 2 LP set. This came out in 2018. Great pressing, sounds great. Highly recommend that one. Threw on a little Prince, a little controversy the other day. Kind of some early Prince here. This was his second or third album. If you count that Black album or whatever, this is the third, right? Third or fourth? I'm getting confused with whatchamacallit. The fourth album, I think. But anyway, 1981. And then this album is kind of like the stuff I like. The stuff I don't, it's like I could definitely do without. So stuff like Controversy, love that to death. Private Joy, very great. But then stuff like Anti-Christian or Jack You Off or stuff like that, it's like, okay, whatever, Prince, whatever the weird stuff you were doing. But yeah, classic album, great stuff there. One that I always find myself going back to, David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust. Of course, I don't have to say anything about this. Fantastic, legendary album. And same with this. I'm always kind of shocked when I do end up pulling this out to actually play it. But Led Zeppelin 4, it's quite frankly, it's like a hard one for me to naturally go to, just because between radio and how much we loved it as individuals, this album got so played out that it really is hard to go back to it sometimes. But then every now and then when it's been quite some time and I do go back to it and put it on, it's just like, man, that is one freaking rockin' classic rock album. And I think song for song, I could easily argue one of the top 3, at least, classic rock albums of all time. So I got the urge to revisit it the other day, and it was a fun listen. Pet Shop Boys, Retrospective, another one of the greats from the mid to late 80s. And on here you had like Domino Dancing and Always on My Mind. Just another fantastic album there. And I think this came out, 1988? So another good spin. Thievery Corporation here. Another great band that kind of does a lot of different things, very creative. I think they're a duo out of, I think DC is where they're out of. But they just do a lot of different things musically. And with this one here, this is their 2014 release. This has it's basically a Latin type of album. So, and almost like a feel of like a Girl from Ipanema type of, slower, groovy type of Latin feel. But a really cool album. That was a great revisit because I hadn't spun that one in quite some time. And I'm always dipping back into my boy Frank Sinatra, Swinging Affair. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Whenever I get in one of my Vegas type of moods, there's usually one of 4 artists that I'm going to, and it's usually Wayne Newton, Bobby Darwin, Lou Rawls, or Frank Sinatra. Like those are just my 4 absolute go-tos. And this, of course, has my favorite song by Frank Sinatra, which is I Won't Dance. I love that freaking track. And so that was a really awesome listen. Loudness, Lightning Strikes. This is their release from 1986. Kind of an Asian glam metal kind of band. Definitely my favorite track off of this is going to be probably Street Life Dream. I would say is my favorite off of this album. My favorite by the band, period, off their other album is a Rock and Roll Gypsy. So if you haven't heard of them before for some reason, definitely check those 2 tracks out. My boys, I don't care what anybody says, Milli Vanilli, Rob and Fab, 2 of the absolute coolest guys ever. They were just a little bit ahead of their time because today half the freaking people on stage don't perform their own stuff anyway. And so I really don't care. They made my childhood a blast. They were both cool as hell. The music is always fun to listen to, and I will forever be a fan and have Milli Vanilli's back. So always a fun revisit there. That's my boys. And next here, little Don Henley. Hadn't dove into some of his solo stuff in a while. This is his release from 1984. This is Building the Perfect Beast. With his solo stuff, definitely not my favorite album by him, even though this has my favorite song from his solo career, which of course is The Boys of Summer. Absolutely love that track, and the kind of the guitar outro at the end of it is one that just gives me magnificent chills. I love the video, just everything about it is fantastic. Then you have a couple other good things on here too, like All She Wants to Do Is Dance and Sunset Grill, another one there. But then most of the other tracks on here are kind of like so-so, if you will, especially when you compare it to this one, which is The End of the Innocence, which he put out a few years later in 1989. And song for song, I think this is a much better album than that one. But on here, of course, you have End of the Innocence, Last Worthless Evening, New York Minute, The Heart of the Matter. I mean, just some awesome singles off of this album. But to me, this was certainly his best solo work. And so I really enjoyed going back and connecting with both of those. Little Soundgarden, Badmotorfinger. My favorite album by them. Favorite song on here is Outshined. And this is just between all the other stuff that they did. I just, Chris, of course, vocally is just amazing on everything. But the riffs on this album, the riffs and the punch of this album compared to their other ones, like this is just my absolute favorite. So that's their release from 91. A band I don't go back and revisit as often, which is the White Stripes. But every now and then I kind of dip back in, even though I have a good chunk of their stuff. But this is their release from 2002. And I think one of the reasons why I don't revisit them as often is because, obviously between a White and, the amazing guitarist and songwriter that he is, it's like, between just having guitar and the drums, it's kind of limited to what you can do, like how much you can do. And the two of them, they do as much as you can and take it like to the highest levels that you can. I mean, that's what makes them so amazing. But what it also does for me is it makes it very repetitive to me, where I can't sit and listen to like two of their albums or whatever back to back, because I really start getting like I'm hearing and feeling the same thing. And I think that's why I don't go to them as regularly. But still fantastic. It's just one of those things where, you take in bands in different ways. But that was a good revisit because I hadn't spun that album in probably a couple years. And my boy, you tend to see him in a lot of my What's Been Spinning videos, Jim Croce. This is I Got a Name. When it comes to just my idea and concepts of that early 70s singer-songwriter type of thing, like his music just sums it up for me. Especially more of his slower stuff. I mean, some of his up-tempo stuff is definitely good as well, but it doesn't even come close as the slower stuff that he does. Just moves me to no end. With stuff like I Got a Name, like that song is just freaking magical to me off of this album. I'll have to say I Love You in a song, and I'm not even gonna dive in his other albums. Just one that we just lost way too fast. It would have been great to get, you know, not only for him to live longer, period, but to get some more albums by him. Just an absolute legend. He's one of those artists that just having it on and listening to it, just his vibe being in the room, it's just a great feeling. You know, it's just that positive 70s just singer-songwriter feeling. Just love it. But last but not least, little Depeche Mode. This is their 2023 release. I think I only had listened to it all the way through one time when I first got it. It came out this year, and so I wanted to kind of go back and just dive into it again. And just, you know, typical Depeche Mode, the synthy, somewhat of a dark feeling to it, sometimes like kind of a sexy feeling to it. You know, it's not all of a sudden going to be one of my best or favorite albums by them, but it's Depeche Mode doing Depeche Mode, and I will take that any day of the week. So I hope we get another 6, 7, whatever albums out of them. So really, really cool stuff, and that was good to kind of go back and revisit it from the first time I listened to it. My biggest complaint about this particular pressing is the fact that they made the cover so much bigger than the standard vinyl. And like with some of the tight cube thing that I'm putting it in here, like it won't even go in, and you put it in the stacks and it stands out a little bit taller, and it's kind of like, why make the album where it doesn't fit in with everything else? Like I don't know, maybe they think you'll listen to it more if it sticks out and catches your attention, or I don't know, but that little detail kind of bothered me. But anyway, there you go, VC. That's kind of what I've been spinning. And as always, let me know what you guys think. Just a bunch of random stuff there, and we will talk to you soon. All right, take care, guys.